But I think having all three films where the major character that was introduced was a woman, it seems like it's a shift in the entire MCU. I hate the MCU slogan. I hate it. I hate it with every fiber of my being.
They'll never know what you sacrificed for them.
Let us go. Just let us die. Nerdrotic.com.
Now that we have come to the season finale of the MCU Stage 4, I have to admit, it sucks to be right. Still, cue Razor Fist.
F*** you, I was right! F*** you, I was right! F*** you, I was right!
You heard Grace say it herself, and now the mainstream access media is admitting that the MCU exists. And one thing is abundantly clear. The MCU killed the MCU star. But before we get started with what the kids call these days the cope from the access media, I think we need to do an updated count of the new characters introduced in the MCU Stage 4. And we'll do it by gender. All two of them, and we'll start with the men. Sorry, ladies. In order of appearance, from Black Widow, we had General Dreykov, who is now deceased. Red Guardian.
I am simple man.
You are an idiot.
From Falcon and Winter Soldier, John Walker.
I think we got off on the wrong foot.
Looking strong, John!
From Loki, Mobius, and Kang, who is now deceased, kind of. From Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Bracelets, Shang-Chi and his bad dad, Zhu Wenwu, deceased. From the Eternals, Druig, Phastos, Kino, and Icarus, deceased. From Moon Knight and Arthur Harrow, deceased. From Thor Love and Thunder, Gore, deceased. And from Wakanda Forever, Namor. Honorable mentions, Mr. Fantastic, deceased. Professor X, deceased. From Doctor Strange Mom. Now for the ladies, this may take a minute. From WandaVision, Monica Rambeau and Agatha Harkness. From Black Widow, the new Black Widow, the Taskmaster, and Milena, the female Mengele. Falcon and Winter Soldier, Madame Hydra.
Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. Actually, it's Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Or Val and Freckle Jesus. Loki, female Loki, and Ravonna Renslayer, or Girl Boss. Shang-Chi, Zhu Zheling, Ying Nan, and Marvel's Katie.
Oh my God.
The Eternals, Ajak, Cersei, Makari, Sprite, Athena, Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, and Echo. Moon Knight, the Scarlet Scarab. She's an Egyptian superhero, you know.
Slay!
Miss Marvel, Doctor Strange Mom, America Chavez.
You don't know anything.
Thor Love and Thunder, female Thor. She-Hulk Attorney at Law, She-Hulk and Titania. Wakanda Forever, Aneka and Ironheart. For those of you counting at home, that is 15 male hero/villains introduced, 5 deceased, and 27 female hero/villains introduced, 0 deceased. And as I've stated before, this is the most Disney Marvel we've ever gotten at any time ever. The MCU Stage 4 is as follows. The films: Black Widow, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Bracelets, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, the only good film in this list, Doctor Strange Mom, Thor Love and Thunder, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, TV series, WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, What If, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, I Am Groot, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, TV movies, Werewolf by Night, the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which still has to come out, and no, What If, Werewolf by Night, and I Am Groot aren't even worth talking about. Now, we were told that there was no such thing as the MCU. There is no MCU, but maybe there should be. When the first episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law hit Disney Plus on August 18th, an almost instant wave of backlash hit the internet, probably because it sucked. Some people did not like the series explicitly discussing the very real challenges that women face in their careers and their lives as a consequence of the patriarchy. Or maybe, just maybe, I want you to consider this, maybe the audience didn't like the titular character. She-Hulk was also review bombed online similarly to Black Panther, Captain Marvel, Eternals, and Miss Marvel. By the way, Black Panther wasn't review bombed for having main characters that were not white, heterosexual male, and or for discussing issues of racism and sexism, because that's what we watch superhero movies for. Reminder, this is from The Nerdist, who falsely Me Too'd their own founder, Chris Hardwick, and have never apologized for it, which probably has a little bit to do with no one giving a shit about them anymore. But some of the most egregious complaints about the so-called rise of the MCU, in which women are apparently replacing men in the MCU to the tune of almost 2-to-1, they may certainly be valid criticisms of She-Hulk. However, labeling the series anti-man or woke is really just thinly veiled misogyny and fragile masculinity. Yet you're bitching about the term MCU. Furthermore, when we look at the history of women in the MCU, both in front and behind the camera, calling the MCU is simply inaccurate. Is it now? Let's recap briefly. First, there wasn't an MCU, followed by 5 big problems with the MCU theory. Then it turned into how real is the MCU controversy. Coming right off the heels of that, Marvel Studios just mocked its own sexist MCU controversy, followed by the problem with the MCU, and the latest MCU full-on mode. Every Avenger seems to have a female version now. Disney, Marvel, and Kevin Feige created the MCU. I just gave it a slogan that was supposed to be a joke that ended up sticking because it's the MCU. From Screen Rant, published on June 25th, 2018. Exclusive. MCU will soon have more female heroes than male heroes. Kevin Feige reveals that he envisions a time when more than half of the superheroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe are female. Admittedly, I didn't know the MCU was being discussed this much outside of the fandom until I heard it from Grace and started doing research for this video, and damn.
Well.
I knew one of the fine members in the audience got banned from Reddit for using it. I've also heard whispers that Disney Marvel hates the term. Good. Let's go to the article that probably has the most even approach to the MCU theory that's very much a reality. 5 big problems with the MCU theory. Number 5, are the ladies successors or replacements? I can answer this quite easily. Replacements. Obviously, this is just parsing words, but they make a semi-decent point. But being seen as a replacement, which is how some folks, know a lot of them, do end up seeing certain characters, is a pretty big issue, since it means in the eyes of a lot of fans, they will still have a lot of work to do to prove themselves. That might sound incredibly sexist. Oh, we gotta stop right there. There's the bigotry of low expectations and the sexism of low expectations. Kinda like Kevin Feige wanting female directors, but not wanting them to direct the action scenes. Number 4, the idea of earning their place comes and goes. No, it mostly goes, especially with characters like Monica Rambeau, who was positively affirmed while she was walking through a magic barrier and became omnipotent. Then, of course, there's Miss Marvel, who got her powers from opening a box and finding a bracelet. Where the article admits with number 3, they tend to increase their power levels quite a bit, and yes, they do. Not to mention the really bizarre, twisted Hollywood morality that goes along with these brand new female stories.
They'll never know what you sacrificed for them.
Let us go. Just let us die.
Number 2, jumping on characters that came before isn't the best idea. No, it isn't. This is another point of contention that irks a few fans. A few? No, most. There's a need to be thick-skinned when it comes to being grilled and put on blast. Remember that, new fans. But there's also the need for those who are being introduced into the MCU to show at least a small amount of respect, or maybe a little more than that, for those who have come before. After all, those that helped shape the franchise are those that did manage to earn their way with every step. The one thing you're not asking any new female character to do, and every scene, deciding to let some characters rip on others simply because they're there and are now awesome without even half of the development, feels like a big diss that didn't need to happen. But oh well, no, it's oh well for Disney Marvel. Number 1, they are the future of the MCU. Take it as you will, and I'm sure that's the attitude at Disney, but most of us are deciding to leave it. The MCU is a silly kind of idea that marginalizes the franchise at times, or accurately describes it, but there are other times when the idea makes too much sense. One of my favorite things about this gig is reading articles from 25-year-old fans who bought a couple of pop vinyls, who set out to debunk our theories and end up validating them. How real is the MCU controversy? Is Marvel Studios really mishandling established characters to push an agenda?
Yes! Yes! Yes!
The Marvel Cinematic Universe is facing a lot of storms this year, one of which is called the MCU controversy, the backlash it is currently receiving from trying to explore new roads that many started to call the franchise woke. What is the MCU controversy all about? One of the current backlashes that Marvel Studios is handling is the notorious MCU, a term used by social media users to criticize and condemn MCU's method of female representation. Out of all the female-led shows, She-Hulk Attorney at Law receives the biggest blow. Do you want to know why? Oh, you would have to read comic books to know why, so I'm just going to nerd-splain you. We liked She-Hulk and knew She-Hulk because we read the comic books. The showrunner of She-Hulk Attorney at Law not only didn't know anything about the law, she didn't read any comic books, and she didn't like the fans. And it showed. Just like in previous articles, they try to conflate the entirety of the MCU with the MCU. Again, the MCU is just stage 4. It just finished, and, well, I stand by everything I've said. There's also the usual, we're racist and sexist for even bringing this up. Is Marvel Studios doing something about this backlash? Marvel Studios' awareness of the MCU controversy shows that their top priorities are creative freedom and relevant change. While many viewers would look at this as pushing an agenda, because it is, it only demonstrates the studio's commitment to becoming a platform for diversity and a voice for the silenced. The bigotry of low expectations. You're marginalized. You're silenced. No, you're not. But it doesn't end there. Look at how many kids were inspired when they saw Chadwick Boseman become the Black Panther. I totally agree. And look how many kids weren't inspired when they didn't recast the role. Look at how many women were encouraged to speak up and take up space when Brie Larson became Captain Marvel. You mean the same Captain Marvel that got demoted in her own sequel had more men watching it than women? You know where the women took up space? Aquaman. Let's very briefly go back to the Nerdist. There is no MCU, but maybe there should be, and the final sentence of the second paragraph. Furthermore, when we look at the history of women in the MCU, both in front and behind the camera, calling the MCU is simply inaccurate, except of course when it is. From direct, Marvel Studios just mocked its own sexist MCU controversy. The mainstream media, the access media, and a large portion of Hollywood has always hated nerds, and they still hate them. That's why the showrunners from the MCU's She-Hulk actually wrote it into their scripts. Let that sink in again for just a moment. Marvel Comics, making fun of what Hollywood, the mainstream media, and the access media calls the incel, the virgin in their basement, the nerd. Their terms, not ours, but it's no coincidence that they're slinging the same shit that the jocks did back in the 80s, because they are the same. Oh, but the MCU tried to be cute, but it ended up being a net loss. She-Hulk is already dropped out from the charts, and yes, I do believe it has contributed to the diminishing returns from Marvel. Just look at Black Panther's second week that Hollywood and Disney is trying to spin as we speak. Wakanda Forever dropped 79% Friday to Friday, and it's looking like it's going to drop anywhere between 65% or 70% from its previous week. Reminder, Black Panther, the original, only dropped 47% in its second weekend. Another reminder, one of the biggest drop-offs in Disney Marvel history was Thor: Love and Thunder at 68%. So bare minimum, they're only 3% away from that. But the news gets worse for Disney, which quite frankly makes me happy. As my good friend Ryan Kinnell from RK Outpost pointed out in a video, which will be linked in the description, the number you really want to pay attention to is tickets sold, which are down from Black Panther for Wakanda Forever up to 40%. You heard me right, 40% fewer people watch Wakanda Forever. What Disney, Marvel, and Hollywood is doing right now is charging more money to fewer people. Yes, there's diminishing returns. Yes, there's Disney, Marvel fatigue. Also, there is more people seeing through Disney's bullshit. Yes, this is the same company that thanked a concentration camp in China, shrunk Finn on the Force Awakens poster for China, covered up Chadwick Boseman's face with a mask on a poster for China, and most recently decided to celebrate the release of Wakanda Forever with a purple drink and chicken. You shouldn't be surprised. This is the same company that said Doctor Strange was just another white guy. This is also the same company that Disney Marvel producer Nate Moore thought it was worth putting the Eternals up the list and then race and gender swapping all of them because nobody cared about the characters. Think about that one for just a moment. Bottom line, virtue signaling by giant billion-dollar corporations is a luxury they can no longer afford. What's the MCU? Well, to begin with, it's just content for a platform made by pie charts, graphs, and analytics. The MCU is male characters being diminished and being surrounded by female character clones, outright degrading the male character to lift up the female character. To sum it up, the MCU is replacing men with women who act like men. Not a movement, it's not progress, it's risk-averse marketing. But this isn't a surprise coming from the company that convinced a lot of people to give Disney a lot of money to see Black Panther to quote-unquote fight racism. Very simple why Marvel succeeded in the beginning. They told a good story and they were able to adapt their own source material correctly. Iron Man looked and acted like Iron Man. Captain America looked and acted like Captain America. And Black Panther looked and acted like Black Panther. And now all three of them are dead. What did you expect? And one of the final acts of the MCU is to do the most MCU thing possible. Remove a man's penis. That's right. Namor's junk is no more. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com.
Oh look, we're getting our own mid-credit scene because we got some pretty big news while editing this video. Bob Chapek has been fired and replaced with Bob Iger, the guy who started all this mess. Meet the new Disney, same as the old Disney.